Learning objectives. Following completion of this session, participants will be able to describe the principles and guidance of the CLSI Quality System Essential QC supplier and inventory management development process to select suppliers, contractors, or consultants of products and services to your laboratory. Determine your laboratory's role in the purchasing process. Provide feedback to suppliers as to whether they meet your laboratory's expectations. Learning objectives continued. Following completion of this session, participants will be able to develop the process to receive materials into the laboratory and verify performance. As needed, properly store laboratory materials. Identify key factors in maintaining an inventory of laboratory supplies and reagents. Create tracking of critical materials through laboratory processes. Introduction to Quality System Essential, QC Supplier and Inventory Management. QC Supplier and Inventory Management. QC Supplier and Inventory Management describes agreements the laboratory has with entities from which it obtains equipment, materials, supplies, other products, and services the laboratory should communicate with, set expectations for, and build and maintain good relationships with suppliers. QC Supplier and Inventory Management and ISO. CISO 15189:2022 ISO/IEC 17025:2017 ISO 9001:2015 Supplier and Inventory Management 6.6 Reagents and Consumables. 6.8 Externally Provided Products and Services. 6.6 Externally Provided Products and Services. 7.1 Review of Requests, Tenders, and Contracts. 8.4 Control of Externally Provided Processes, Products, and Services. QC Supplier and Inventory Management, Qualification. Policy, processes, procedures, qualification, and selection of suppliers. Processes to qualify and select suppliers and contractors of equipment, instruments, reagents, consumable materials, and other products and services. Based on ability to meet laboratory expectations, identifying the laboratory's expectations for products or services, recording comparison of suppliers' capabilities with the laboratory's expectations, qualifying new or changed supplies. Process to select referral laboratories. Comparing candidate referral laboratory services with the laboratory's established selection criteria. Process to select consultants who provide opinions and interpretations. Process to develop and maintain an approved supplier list. Setting criteria for consultant performance. Making changes to the approved supplier list. QC Supplier and Inventory Management, Qualification. The laboratory needs to identify critical equipment, materials, and other products and services, and define the necessary characteristics and minimal requirements for each. Prospective suppliers can be ranked by their ability to meet the laboratory's expectations, which can help to determine the final selection. Suppliers, contractors, and consultants can be qualified based on criteria such as licensure or approval of methods, reagents, or instruments, review of past history, external certification of the supplier's QMS, any other facility determined criteria, external personal certification, or licensure of a contractor or a consultant. QC Supplier and Inventory Management, Qualification. Selecting referral laboratories and consultants. Agreements with referral laboratories and consultants need to be periodically reviewed for the following, with documentation of the reviews. The requirements of both parties are defined, documented, and understood. The referral laboratory or consultant can meet the requirements. There are no conflicts of interest. Examination selections are appropriate for their intended use. Respective responsibilities for the opinions and interpretations of examination results are clearly defined. The referring laboratory meets all regulatory and accreditation requirements. QC Supplier and Inventory Management, Procurement. Policy, processes, procedures, procurement of equipment, materials, other products or services. Process to establish contracts or agreements for the procurement of equipment, instruments, reagents, consumable materials, and other products and services procured from other sources, formally recording contract or agreement provisions, process to purchase laboratory materials or collaborate with a purchasing authority, ordering supplies or services from providers, generating and maintaining approved supplier. List process to review and amend contracts and agreements, periodically reviewing purchasing agreements for any necessary revisions. QC supplier and inventory management, procurement. Approved supplier list once qualified. A list of suppliers, consultants, and contractors from whom purchases can be made is maintained. Agreements, formal agreements with suppliers, contractors, and consultants that specify the laboratory's expectations and responsibilities as well as the supplier's expectations and responsibilities. Procurement. The laboratory should work with the organization's procurement function to develop and document roles and responsibilities in the procurement processes. QC supplier and inventory management, assessment. Policy processes procedures assessment of suppliers, referral laboratories, contractors, and consultants process to provide feedback to referral laboratories on whether they met the laboratory's expectations. Process to assess consultants who provide second opinions, communicating feedback to appropriate parties, reporting instances of unsatisfactory services or products. QC supplier and inventory management, assessment. The laboratory needs to maintain a process to provide feedback to suppliers, referral laboratories, contractors, and consultants on whether they have met the laboratory's expectations. Any amendments are needed to the agreements. Assessments should be shared with procurement authority for agreement reviews or to obtain service improvements. The laboratory needs a systematic plan for managing the receipt, storage, handling, and use of procured equipment, materials, and other products. Inspection and verification of received materials. The laboratory needs processes to receive procured items from routine orders, standing orders, and special orders such as equipment and enter them into inventory. The laboratory needs to verify that the received materials match the source procurement document. Verification may occur through a chain of interim documents and records. QC supplier and inventory management, assessment. An inspection and verification plan should include receiving location personnel assignments for incoming materials delivery, times delivery, tracking information, temperature, and/or special handling requirements. QC supplier and inventory management, assessment. Storage and handling of materials, dedicated storage areas for supplies and reagents. Protection from damage or deterioration must be in accordance with manufacturer's recommendations and applicable safety requirements. QC supplier and inventory management, assessment. QC supplier and inventory management, inventory. Policy processes procedures. Inventory management processes to receive procured items, reconciling the purchasing document with the items received, processes to verify before use that received supplies comply with established acceptance criteria, performing lot-to-lot reagent comparisons, processes to store and handle materials, storing and handling all types of laboratory materials per the manufacturer's instructions, processes to use, evaluate, and maintain an inventory of laboratory supplies and reagents, inspecting incoming materials, verifying materials before use, tracking expiry dates, communicating inventory levels, and when reorder is necessary. QC supplier and inventory management, inventory. An inventory of in-date supplies should be maintained. For identified critical materials, records are needed for date, receive, lot number, whether or not acceptance criteria were met, and any follow-up date material is placed in service or disposition if not used. An inventory management systems is desirable that considers the costs of managing the inventory, maintains adequate accessibility to materials and supplies, reduces waste. QC supplier and inventory management, critical materials. Critical materials are essential to the laboratory's processes, can affect the quality of the test results, interpretations, or information. Traceability of critical materials allows for recreating exactly which materials were used in a given work process. A process is needed to ensure traceability of critical materials and services throughout the work performed, including recording. Material identity lot number expiry date. Discussion/activity review. List the ways that this QC applies to your laboratory. List all of the laboratory documents pertaining to this QC. Discussion/activity review answers. Laboratory documents for QC. Supplier and inventory management. Inventory control process flow basic analysis of items use stock, inventory record perpetual, inventory record product package, insert instrument parts, inventory record referral laboratory evaluation. Quality system essential, QC supplier and inventory management in practice and application. QC supplier and inventory management requirements. A. Selection and qualification based on ability to meet laboratory expectations. B. Purchase of materials and services. C. Supplier, contractor, and consultant evaluation. D. Inspection and verification of received materials. E. Storage and handling of materials. F. Inventory management. G. Identification and tracking of critical materials and services. QC supplier and inventory management processes. 1. Selection and qualification. Suppliers of equipment and materials, i.e., reagents and supplies. Contractors of services, referral laboratories, blood supplier, laboratory information system support. Consultants. Pathology, second or expert opinions, technical and quality assistance. Your laboratory is a customer of suppliers, contractors, and consultants. 25. 2. Processes to qualify and select suppliers, contractors, and consultants. Critical materials and services are identified. Laboratories' criteria, i.e., specified requirements, are defined and communicated. Suppliers are qualified, i.e., criteria applied. Suppliers are selected. Collaboration with purchasing function is completed. 26. 3. Critical materials and services identified. Critical materials directly affect the quality of examination results. Sample collection materials, sterile supplies, purchased reagents, and kit source chemicals, prepared reagents, calibration materials, controls. Critical services referral laboratory services, human blood components for transfusion outside consultants who provide second opinions on pathologic diagnoses, outside calibration services, purchased only from suppliers on the approved supplier list. 4. Criteria defined and communicated. Your laboratory's criteria are specified requirements for product characteristics, product dependability, delivery, price and value, technical support. 28. 5. Supplier qualification. Supplier qualification process to determine whether a company, product, or service is capable of fulfilling specified requirements. Qualified status given to a company, product, or service when the capability of fulfilling the specified requirements has been demonstrated. 6. Suppliers selected. Ranking prospective suppliers. Is the supplier capable of providing the critical supply or service within the criteria? Are any supplies produced subject to regulatory requirements? Can the required service or supply amount be reliably provided? Case study. New analyzer ABC PI1. QC supplier and inventory requirements application to analyzer ABC selection and qualification based on ability to meet laboratory expectations. The automated testing section supervisor, the laboratory director, and selected testing staff prepared a list of criteria that the new analyzer would have to meet. Potential vendors with established quality management systems were chosen for evaluation with the help of the organization's materials management department. A template of criteria with ranked weighting was prepared and applied to 3 vendors. Discussions were held with representatives from each vendor. 1 vendor was chosen. B1. Purchase of materials and services. Material specifications, your laboratory's additional requirements, purchase price, method and terms of payment, delivery method and time frame, length of contract term, termination clause, confidentiality, where applicable. Point of contact information for both parties, responsibility of supplier to notify your laboratory of any changes that could affect quality and safety of laboratory processes information that a product they provide is not safe, e.g. recalls. Any additional specified responsibilities of both parties. B2. Formal purchasing agreements. Documented, reviewed by both sides. Periodically. Amendments or changes. Approved by both sides, subject to version control. B3. Necessary collaboration. Work with parent organization's materials management service. Develop a cross-functional flowchart of sequential activities. Define respective responsibilities timelines. Maintain an approved supplier list, documented, reviewed, and approved by laboratory and materials management subject to version control contingency for when a supplier is not on the list. B4. Purchasing referral laboratory services. Referral laboratory referring laboratory external laboratory to which a sample is submitted for examinations or tests and from which a report is expected laboratory that submits samples for examinations or tests. B5. Additional agreement considerations. The requirements, including methods that will be used, are defined, documented, and understood. The referral laboratory or consultant can meet the requirements. A statement is included indicating that any conflicts of interest have been identified and resolved. Referred examinations are appropriate for their intended use. Respective responsibilities for the interpretation of the examination results are clearly defined. B6. Your laboratory as a supplier. Formal agreements that specify customer laboratory's expectations and responsibilities, your laboratory's responsibilities as the supplier. Formal agreements are documented, reviewed by both sides, periodically amendments or changes approved by both sides subject to version control. Case study, new analyzer ABC PI2. QC supplier and inventory requirement application to analyzer ABC processes for creating, reviewing, and amending purchasing agreements. The automated testing section supervisor worked with the organization's materials management department and the appropriate suppliers to set up the purchasing agreements for all needed reagents, calibration materials, controls, and other supplies related to performing examinations on analyzer ABC. In the future, the laboratory may consider offering this specialized testing to outreach clients. If that happens, special agreements for outreach clients to purchase these examinations will be prepared. C1. Evaluating suppliers. Process for providing feedback to suppliers. Whether or not laboratory expectations were met. Need for any revisions or amendments to agreement. Share feedback and any responses with purchasing authority. C2. Common complaints about suppliers. Wrong product sent, wrong amounts of product, incomplete orders, damaged product, defective product, backordered deliveries, untimely delivery, short expiry time frame, unhelpful or unavailable support services. Case study, new analyzer ABC PI 3. QC supplier and inventory requirement application to analyzer ABC evaluating suppliers, contractors, consultants, and referral laboratories. The automated testing section supervisor plans to evaluate the suppliers of reagents, calibration materials, controls, and other supplies related to performing examinations on analyzer ABC at 3 months and 6 months. If the 6-month evaluation is still favorable, then the next evaluation will be made when the contracts are due for renewal at 1 year from initiation. D1. Receiving materials. Receiving at main facility. Process for transfer to laboratory. Timeliness of delivery of temperature-sensitive materials. Receipt into the laboratory. Inspection of materials for compliance with acceptance criteria. Sample of materials for performance verification where needed. D2. Verifying performance. Implement a process to ensure that changes to package inserts are checked. Necessary follow-up for changes to applicable laboratory documents. Verify critical materials as complying with specified acceptance criteria or requirements. Inspection for physical condition. Testing of reagents and kits for functionality. D3. Material verification records. Records of all receipt inspections and function testing. Lot number, date received. Inspection and function testing results. Follow up as needed. Do not use critical materials until after verification inspection and testing were required. Case study, new analyzer ABC PI4. QC supplier and inventory requirement application to analyzer ABC receiving materials and verifying performance. All purchased materials are first received at the organization's receiving dock where the shipping container's contents are matched to a purchase order. The materials management department and the laboratory already have a process for sending all received materials quickly to the laboratory, where the laboratory's receiving clerk checks the accuracy of shipping container contents and checks for any damage, leakage, or contamination. The materials are then stored in a segregated area until they are verified for use. The laboratory has a process for verifying reagents, calibration materials, controls, and supplies critical to examinations function as expected before use in patient sample examinations. Records are kept of these verifications. E. Storage and handling of materials. Designated storage areas, segregation of verified versus non-verified materials, protection from damage and deterioration, store according to. Manufacturer's recommendations. Applicable safety requirements. Case study, new analyzer ABC PI5. QC supplier and inventory requirement application to analyzer ABC storing and handling laboratory materials. The laboratory's automated testing section maintains areas in storage refrigerators for reagents, calibration materials, and controls, segregated by analyzer, and maintains records of refrigerator temperatures. All other materials are stored according to manufacturer's recommendations. F1. Inventory management. Adequate amounts of unexpired. Reagents. Kits, calibrators, controls, stock chemicals. Examination and non-examination supplies. Sample collection containers, pipettes, cuvettes, glass slides, paper, etc. Record of date critical materials were placed into service on. Reagent labels. Worksheets or electronic records. F2. Maintaining inventory. Maintenance of inventory management system. Paper-based. Electronic. Lean principles. Ordering supplies. Supplies organization. Waste reduction. Sustain. Shine. Standardize. Sort. Straighten. Lean 5S method. 49. Case study, new analyzer ABC PI 6. QC supplier and inventory requirement application to analyzer ABC using, evaluating, and maintaining inventory of laboratory reagents and materials. The automated testing section supervisor used the Lean 5S methodology to reorganize her section's assigned storage and refrigerator space to make room for all of analyzer ABC's reagents and supplies. The supervisor and staff designed Kanban cards for each reagent and supply material. The cards were placed at the point where restock or reorder will be needed. The staff has remarked that it is much easier to find materials and ensure enough are on hand. They are committed to supporting 5S in the storage areas. G1. Identification and tracking. Tracking from receipt throughout work performed. Which day, which examination. Which patient sample. Which lot number and expiration date. Which person or laboratory. Who did what, when, and with which materials. G2. Tracking is vital. Allows recreation of exactly which materials and services were used in a given process. Equipment, controls, reagents, samples, staff. Situations where tracking is vital. Unsatisfactory results on proficiency testing challenges. Patient's adverse reaction to blood transfusion. Recreation of a nonconforming event, e.g., reporting error that led to adverse action on a patient. Legal investigations. G3. Tracking for measurement devices. Tracking of materials used to calibrate a measuring device. Examples include thermometers, weights, RPM sensors, mechanical pipettes, retention of certificates of traceability as records. Case study, new analyzer ABC PI 7. QC supplier and inventory requirement application to analyzer ABC tracking critical materials. The automated testing section supervisor and super users identified all the critical reagents and other materials associated with the new analyzer. They ensured that all procedures contained instructions for capturing information for tracking of equipment, reagents, materials, and personnel. They verified the availability of a thermometer traceable to a national standard to calibrate the thermometers in the storage, refrigerators, freezers, and work area. Key messages. Defined processes to purchase and manage inventory ensures quality materials are acquired that meet laboratory expectations. Developing good relationships with suppliers is important. Well-organized storage areas increase efficiency and can control costs. Ability to track critical materials and services throughout the path of workflow assures the laboratory can recreate what happened if the need arises. QC supplier and inventory management. Conclusion. You can't sell from an empty wagon. Charles Tandy. Thank you.